Okay, TKT Unit 31, grouping learners, okay? When we talk about grouping learners, we have to understand that sometimes one of our favorite activities is maybe to mingle students, okay? We want students go and talk to each other, make questions, yes, interact. But again, some of our students may not feel comfortable because English is also a matter of self-esteem, okay? Yes, it is. Uh-huh. Because some of our students may not feel ready to talk to some other students, especially to the ones who have a higher level, for example. Okay, so then of course we want to mingle students. We want to talk, to make everybody participate and have interaction with each other, right? And we also want to have dynamic classes. Mhm. As English teachers, we love when we make students participate, have a lot of energy, interact, and do crazy activities like this one, right? But we have to understand, again, that when we make groups, when we group students, we have to take certain things into consideration, okay? For example, are they gonna be able? Mhm. Are they enabled to do it, for example, right? So they have the abilities, the skills, the attitude to do it. Because sometimes we can say, okay, Juanito, you're going to be working with Perla, okay? But when we have the students to work together, there must be a reason, not just like you are the number 3 in the list and you're the number 4 of the list, or you are a boy and you are a girl, so I want this kind of activity, right? So grouping students is something really important, not just in the sense to have dynamic classes or to make students mingle, okay? So when we're talking about having students amongst, okay? So amongst is similar to among, okay? So there is just like a small difference. Mhm. When we have this, we have to consider that students are gonna be sometimes like more dominated by certain students who obviously dominate, and some students are gonna be leaders, and some students are gonna be followers, and some students are gonna be lazy students. No? They're gonna be just like, ah, yeah, okay. So just remember this, for example, when you were in high school, junior high school, okay? And then the teacher said, you're gonna have some teamwork. And there was always one of the students that says, okay, I do this, I do that, and what am I gonna do? Okay, you are gonna do the drawings, no? You're gonna have the illustration. Or even that person says, I am nominating myself to do the illustrations because I don't want to participate. I cannot be in front. You got it? Okay. So, and we're going to have students that dominate other students, right? But at the end, we have to make that when we group students, they need to have good deals, okay? Not just like me, the illustration, and I don't care, okay? Or we can have this kind of students that do everything, okay? And at the end they complain because nobody helped them, right? So that was not a good deal, right? So the point is that if we have these students that don't feel like really ready to do and to be at the same level of maybe other students, they can feel also comfortable in our way that we group students to grow gradually, okay? So maybe at the beginning, I'm not gonna be ready to be at the same level of the, I don't know, like the smartest kid in my classroom, right? The smartest girl. But step by step, I'm gonna be learning from my classmates, and I'm gonna be learning from this experience about working with the others. You get it? Okay. I don't know if I am clear till now. So far, so good.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So remember about feedback, okay? When we give feedback and we have written feedback and oral feedback, right? So when you are gonna sit down in front of your students and you are gonna give this special feedback and you say like, I'm gonna sit down with, I don't know, with Rose and I'm gonna tell her that she has to do this and she has been doing this very well, but maybe Rose is going to be in front of you and it's going to be like, yes, teacher, yes, 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 yes. How do you feel, Rose? Yes, yeah, okay, okay. No, maybe it is not going to feel that confident to tell you. But sooner or later, if you sit down and you give feedback on a regular basis, she's going to feel more confident, maybe to say something, maybe to ask. Okay, so the same situation can happen with our students when we group them, but we have to be careful about this, because if we don't select the correct way to do teamwork, pair work, small groups, okay, if we don't do it correctly, it can be the opposite. Okay, what do you think can happen if we tell one leader to work with another leader? Josh, what do you think can happen if we do that?
When we
You tell,
clash like 2 leaders,
yes.
and would they be working like in the same group?
Mm-hmm. So you have the smartest boy and the smartest girl of your group, and you tell them, okay, we're gonna do this, and you two are gonna be working together.
I would tell them to identify their strengths and how using them they would benefit the team, but also how would they benefit themselves from working with a person that has a different style. I mean, I would ask them, you know, to yeah, like maybe think about this a little bit, and I would see what they do, like what kind of work they achieve.
Yeah, you have a right answer. I mean, especially because you are saying something very important. You say, I would take into consideration the skills they have and the purpose about having them working together. Okay. Now, we have something which can help us, which it is the interaction patterns. Okay. George, do you remember the interaction patterns?
Interaction patterns. Let me think. Uh,
I'm gonna give you a clue. Okay. We have individual work, sorry. We have pair work. Which others do we have?
Jesus Christ, I think I can't remember. Um, like groups, I think it
Okay, small
groups
groups.
one.
Mm-hmm. Which ones? Any other?
Uh, mm, 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 mm. Will we? I don't know if you already said that individual.
Okay, individual. Don't worry. What I want you to understand is that we have these patterns to make precisely interact students to each other. Okay? Yep. So when is it necessary that I make my students to work by themselves, for example? Or when is it necessary that I make my students work in teams, in small groups? with another pair. Mhm. But second question is, which traits do we have to take into consideration when we group our students in an activity? Mhm. When grouping our students, do we really need to pay attention to the characteristics, okay, that we have to consider? Or it is just like, okay, so as to make the class like more interactive, we're gonna be working like this. Boys versus girls. Okay, why boys versus girls? Why? Yeah. Mm, Now we're gonna be working in teams. Yeah. Please select your partners, and we're gonna have 4 teams. Okay. Why in teams? Why not small groups? Why not pairs? Okay. So, and this is something very important, guys, because most of our teachers in the past maybe didn't know this. Okay. And we as English teachers have to understand this. Okay. George, please, can you help us reading?
Yes, sure. What do we need to know when grouping students? There are many ways in which we can organize our learners for the activities. Interaction patterns can be useful according to the drills we have planned. Working individually, pairs, small groups, whole class, or any other of these are always needed. However, we also need to consider learning styles, multiple intelligences, level of the language, teaching approach, context, or type of drills. Very often, the activities suggest a particular interaction pattern.
Okay. We're gonna start like having the last lines. Okay. Very often the activities suggest a particular interaction path. So if we're gonna have a game, maybe the game is suggesting that we have to play it in teams, right? Or maybe if we're gonna have a dictation, we cannot have we cannot have teams in a dictation. Well, we do, but it would be different from the purpose that we want. Okay. So when we talk about, you're going to maybe illustrate this vocabulary. So it has to be individual, maybe. Dictation has to be individual, right? Maybe comparing answers could be something about her work, right? So, but we have to understand this. Consider learning styles, multiple intelligences, level of language, okay? Even teaching approach if it is necessary, or maybe the context. Mhm. It's not the same like when we tell students to do a role play, okay? We're gonna have a role play about the restaurant, yes? So I'm gonna need pairs, mhm, or I'm gonna need this kind of interaction pattern, right? So it depends also the kind of exercise. Yes, of course, these interaction patterns are going to be used according to the activities. Again, certain activities suggest certain interaction patterns. But as teachers, we need to understand more than that. Okay? We are not gonna be controlled by the interaction patterns. We're not gonna be controlled by the activities. We want to make the activities and the interaction patterns to be useful for our purposes. Okay? Josh, please, can you help us?
Sure. Each interaction pattern has a specific purpose, and we have to be very careful when we select them to make students work. At the same time, students always have different traits, and working in pairs, for example, should not be the best option when the students don't have the level of English, or when you have talkative and very shy students. So, when to use what?
Okay. So we have said then that we have to be very careful. Again, the last line, right? We have very talkative students and we have very shy students. Oh my God. So, and I'm gonna ask, I don't know, Rodrigo, who is, Rodrigo is this kind of guy who is talking about everything. Mhm. And he always has an opinion, and he's a really good student, as a matter of fact. He loves English, so he has a very expanded vocabulary. Okay. And on the other hand, I have this other girl, Lupita, no, even the name Lupita, okay, who is very shy. And she is like, even the age, no? For example, Rodrigo might be like 25 years old, and Lupita is 14 years old, right? So how am I gonna do it then? Because I have a mixed ability class, okay? I don't know if you know this concept, that it's very useful when we work in schools to have mixed ability classes, unless you work in a language school, which it is supposed that all the students have almost the same level in the group. Okay, so if you have uh, elementary students, basic students, they're almost going to be the same in the level, basic. Okay, but you can have these other schools when you are working, for example, for a university, or when you are working for, I don't know, a private school, where they don't have these students selected by levels, okay? And then you end up having a mixed ability class. Students that are very basic level students and students that come from the States. Mhm. And you're like, oh, okay. So what am I gonna do then, right? When to use what? When am I gonna use pair work? When am I gonna use teams? Okay. And this is the situation, guys. Listen, we have the first one. We're gonna analyze all these interaction patterns, okay? First, we have individual work. We're gonna use individual work, and you have pros and cons. One of the pros of individual work is that students will get concentrated. When you do this individual work, they're gonna be focused, okay? They get concentrated. Another advantage is that creates a quiet environment. If you want your classroom, if you want your group to be quiet, give them individual work. Okay? So all the noise is gonna leave. Mhm. It's gonna open the door, and that's it. Everybody's gonna start to be quiet when we do individual work, because it requires concentration, and we cannot be talking to the rest. Okay. Another advantage about individual work is that provides learners autonomy. And the last one is lets you categorize the speed of the students when they're working. Okay. So when I give individual work, I can immediately realize which students work faster than the others and which students are slower than the others, which need me as a teacher. Okay. So, and then I can also categorize my students, the fast students and the slow students. Okay. The faster students, the smarter students. Yeah, maybe even like that. Okay. So those are the advantages about individual work. Now, but always we have the opposite, right? When we do a lot of individual work, we have low participation. Mhm. Students don't like to participate and share their individual work. Okay, so when you say volunteers, they are not gonna raise the hand because it is not, no, 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 no. No, no, I don't know. I don't want to share it. This is mine, right? Obviously, individual work is gonna create lack of social skills, right? You also have this disadvantage because you have to wait for slow students, okay? The slower students are gonna create environment like, oh, okay, so now what are we going to do because we have to wait, okay? And when you do individual work, another disadvantage is that monitoring will take more time because you are gonna be passing around the lines and you're gonna be checking one by one, right? Okay, questions now?
No.
Great,
No, everything's fine.
okay. Now, we have already said advantages and disadvantages. But when do we have to use individual work? What's like the best for using individual work? Okay. When you want to decrease the level of energy of the class, that is one. When you want students focus on single activities, okay? And obviously for individual assessment, okay? So um, those 3 points are very useful for individual work, okay? Any question?
No, teacher.
Okay, great. So now, I want you to pay too much attention to these guys. I'm gonna send this information to you, obviously, but I want you to pay attention to this because sometimes as teachers we say like, okay, so we're gonna have something very funny, guys. We're gonna do this activity, please do it individually. And then your students are gonna be like, all the classroom is in silence. The level of energy is gonna be very low, okay? And then the teacher is gonna be like, come on, guys, come on, let's hurry, let's do it. Oh, you're taking a lot. I mean, get relaxed. You said individual work. You decrease the level of energy of the class. So now you have to be very careful about this, okay? I don't like silence, guys. I want you to be talking. I want you to do this. So individual work is not the best in this kind of requirements for the teacher, okay? Now, we're gonna check the second one, pair work. Now, Josh, it's gonna be your turn, please.
Sure. Read everything. Or,
Yes, please.
sure. Pros of pair work: give the student more speaking time, takes the spotlight off you and puts it in onto the partner. The students feel more comfortable talking to a partner rather than to everybody in public. The cons are that students can use language or primary language when working. Students may don't like pair working if they are not at the same level, and if there is no matching in their personalities. When to use it: to make students talk and you don't want to nominate, when you want a bit higher level student help the lower one, or when a drill might be boring.
Okay, very good. So what's your opinion about this, Josh? Something that maybe caught your attention? Something you might find interesting?
Um, well, yeah, I mean, I think what I find interesting or useful is the fact that it's a good strategy to compensate levels or like to, how to say, like to make your work easier, because if you have a big group you cannot have a formal assessment with all the students that may have or that may need a little more help. And when you pair them with a higher level student, well, those students may help you compensate that lack of understanding or that lower level that the other students have. And just a question very quick regarding the
Sure.
cons, primary language when working, that means of course between the students, right? Like when they are communicating with each other. Okay. Yeah, that would be what caught my attention.
Yeah, you know, like one of the problems about the pair work, yeah, it's that you can have this student like, ¿qué dijo que tenemos que hacer? Ah, vas a hacer esto. Ah, va, órale, empieza tú. No, empiezo yo. Hey guys, English, please. No? So, or even when they don't know how to express certain ideas, they're going to use Spanish, in this case, the first language. Okay? Now, pair work is something very necessary in our teaching. Okay? But I'm going to take this one, I mean, when to use it, second point. Okay? When we want a bit higher level student, help the lower one. I want you to realize about this one, okay? When you want a bit higher, okay? We are not saying the highest one. You get it? Why not? Because if we have the highest one with the lowest one, it could be a mess, right? Because they are not going to be in the same level, which is one of the disadvantages. The second point, as a matter of fact, students may don't like pair working if they are not at the same level, right? So, as you can see, it is not as easy as we thought, no? Okay, so Perlita, you're going to be working with Jorge. Are they in the same level? Yeah, they are kind of the same level. Ah, okay, perfect. Because one is a bit higher than the other, and that situation is going to help the lower one to increase the level. Okay, so now I want you to pay attention to these guys before we go on the next ones, right? If you have to categorize your students according to the level, we're going to talk about the level, just the level, not attitudes, not skills, well, maybe skills, but just the level, okay? So if you're going to categorize your students, you may find maybe between 3 to 5 different level of students, okay? Let's say I'm gonna use my camera and I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute, okay? So you have 5 students, maybe. You have like the lowest and the highest, okay? Let's say the smartest guy and the dumbest, no? Let's say. And you have one in the middle, which is like the regular student. It is not that high, it is not that low. It's a common student. It's regular level student. Okay. And between these three, you have this one that is a high student, but it is not like, oh my God, like the highest one. No, it is just a bit higher than a regular student. And you have this one that is a bit lower than the regular student. Okay. Now, when we're going to have pair work, we have to understand this. This one cannot be working with this one because you're going to be having a very big gap between this one and this one. And then this one is going to get bored about working with this one, and this one is going to get frustrated about working with this one. You get it? So maybe this one can be working with this and this. Or maybe this one is going to be working with this 3. Or maybe this 3. Okay? But let's try not to do this because we're going to have difficult consequences. In the sense of maybe shyness, okay? They're going to feel frustrated about their own level. But if you have these ones, regular student, a little bit high, and the highest, okay? This can be a very good option. You get it? Because this one is going to push this one to increase the level. But this one is going to push this one also to increase the level. Okay? And this one is the next slide we're going to check. This one is going to be like the negotiator. If this one starts to bully this one, starts doing bullying to this one, this guy, I get relaxed. You get it? So I wanted to show this. So we're gonna categorize our students. Well, this is a technique. Just you can find your own. You can say, this is gonna be the red one, and the green, and this is gonna be the yellow one. Okay. So and this is gonna be the orange because it is between yellow and red. No, or this one is going to be. I mean, it depends on you, right? So, but this is something very, very important, guys. Now, let's check the next one. Do you have any question? Any comment now?
No.
Not so far.
Perfect. Okay, let's check the next one. George, please.
Yes. Trios. Pros allows them to mix with everyone in the group. Works on group reports, expanding ideas about a topic, and students become more talkative. Cons, choose the right level of the students. Otherwise, it might not work. The group may be playful if you don't monitor them. The student with the lowest level can feel uncomfortable. When to use it? To work on peer teaching when having a mixed ability class, you can use middle-aged students as a catalyst with old and young ones.
Okay. So it's what we were saying, right? So now remember, you have 5 different of categories of your students. You have the highest, the lowest, the regular, and the ones which are in the middle, okay? A little bit higher and a little bit lower, right? Now, but this interaction pattern, the one of trios, works the same, not just for the level, but also when you have a mixed ability class, okay? And when we also say about mixed ability classes, we can also talk about the age of the students. Yep. So remember what I told you about this guy who is 25 years old, okay? And then you have Lupita, who is 14. So you may have this other student in the middle, okay? A middle-aged student. That if you have Lupita and the 25-year-old student, they may not have a link, a connection, right? But if you have one in the middle, it's going to be that. It's going to be the catalyst, right? Because it's going to be able to understand the other one, I mean the old one, and it is going to be able also to understand the young one, right? And can help both to work together. Sorry. Okay. Yes. Now, George, what's your opinion about this?
Um, well, yes, I agree. I mean, it's true what we have here, that it helps. I think it helps a lot with group report. I think that it's really useful for this one. Um, but also, I think that I think the main pro of this four that we have, it's like allow them to mix with everyone in the group and also create a group report. And the main cons with this one is the part of the group may be playful if you don't monitor them. When you have three, it could be a mess.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I say it like by own experience, that when you enter, for example, if you enter a breakout room with three, they are like, yes, no, and yes, no, and they are like, and you're like, have you finished? No, teacher. Sorry.
What do we
And
have
you
to
are,
do? Sorry, teacher. It's
yes,
because we
yes,
started talking about other
yes,
stuff.
yes, that's right. And you're like, you have 5 minutes left. And they are like, no, teacher, why? And that's the problem with this one, that they almost all the times they are like this, like they start like talking. They start chit chatting and they forgot about the activity, and so I think that's the main cons. But I think that it's one of the best to create a group report, like to increase it.
Yeah, I mean, remember that every interaction pattern has its own pros and cons, right? Um, Now, do you remember our negotiation classes we were having? That way we were saying, when you are gonna enter to a negotiation, you also have to be prepared, right? You are going to uh, try to foresee the objections that you can have when you're gonna have a negotiation. When you have these interaction partners, also you have to predict the kind of consequences it might bring each of these interaction partners. So for example, the one of trios can be that one. No? They may feel so comfortable because it is not Juanito and his compadre. Now it is Juanito, his compadre, and the compadre of the compadre, no? It's like, okay, well, it's gonna be funny. Mhm. Okay, watch out. Now, if you can't predict that, then you have to select, okay, yeah, we're gonna be working in trios, but it is not gonna be the three compadres. No? It's gonna be you in this group, you in this one, and you in this one, right? Now, something that I really like about working in trios, guys, is the point number 3 of pros, expanding ideas about the topic. Why do you think it is that, Josh? How can we have students expand ideas about using this?
Well, I mean, do you mean expanding ideas on how to apply these learning pattern?
Yep. When we use trios, why is it an advantage as expanding ideas? How come?
Well, I would say instead of two minds think better than one, I would say that then three think better than two. Um, I mean, it's just like you are taking advantage of the mixed abilities and mixed learning styles that we have with three students, not just two of them that may complement directly one to another by being different or something like that. And when we have three, maybe we we can flee this kind of dynamic where I am different to my peer, but I compensate him or her, and vice versa. maybe by having a third person, we would explore more possibilities.
Exactly. Mhm. Remember what I told you about this 20-old guy, 25-old guy, and Lupita, the 14 one, and then we have another that is 17. So now we have three different perspectives, right?
Yeah,
So
like the middle step.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, we have just two people working together. So the ideas and maybe the knowledge is limited into two, of course. But when we have a third one, sorry, we can expand the information. And when we talk about expanding ideas, not just the ideas, but also the speaking, okay? Because remember this, like, have you gone, I don't know, like, have you gone to the cinema lately? No, I haven't. No, me neither. That's it. But when you have a third one, you can have like, no, I did. I went the last weekend. Yeah. Oh, which movie did you see? And so on. You see? So maybe you can have two people agreeing on certain ideas, but you have a third one, which it is disagreeing, okay? Or who is having a disagreement, right? So, and then you start having more interaction. Ideas are expanded, okay? And that's why then point number 4, it is like that. Students become more talkative, okay? Now, what's the difference when we have pair work and when we have trios? You may not find maybe that point in here, but when you have people working in pairs also gives the chance the students to feel more comfortable, okay? I'm going back to this one. Pros, second one. Teacher takes the spotlight off him or herself, okay? And put it onto another partner, right? So you don't have to talk to me as your teacher. You have to talk to someone similar to you. And that makes the students feel more comfortable, right? So, but it is like a level of talking which it is not, mm, let's say, as deep as if we do it in here. Okay, you got it?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, kind of.
perfect. Okay, now the last point that I want to make sure we can understand in this one of trios is to work on peer teaching. What does that mean? To work on peer teaching. What can you tell me, guys?
Like teaching to 3. I don't know.
Yeah, it may sound like very logical, but as a matter of fact, it is like that. Okay, so you have two people say like, "How do you say this?" And the third one says, "No, it is like this." Okay, thank you. Okay, so maybe two of them are incorrect, but the third part is gonna help you as a teacher correcting the others, right? So it is not necessarily when you have pair work. It might be, but it is not necessarily the same. Okay, right? Great.
Okay.
The next one. Now, Josh, is your turn, please.
Small groups. Regarding the pros, changes the pace of the lesson, teaches them how to lead and to be led by someone other than the teacher, tackle more complex problems that they couldn't do by their own, and delegate roles and responsibilities. Regarding the cons, students sometimes don't know how to manage time to work. They might have different opinions sometimes, and they might turn into problems. The students sometimes just take a part of the job and do it individually. And if it is not well organized, some members will learn just some chunks of info. When to use it, when we want to build skills on problem solving, when working on long tasks, when you want to categorize tasks according to students' level, or specific drills to specific needs or personalities.
Okay. Okay. So George, now, what can you tell us about this one? Which one is the one that you said like, oh, I like this one? George, and
Uh,
then Josh.
um, I think that from the pros, I would say that tackle more complex problems that they couldn't do by their own. I think that's like the main reason for small groups. And the main cons for me in this one is um well I think all of them are like like real problems with the small groups. But I would say like I don't know, like students sometimes don't know how to manage time to work. I think that's a big problem when you work with small groups, because when you work with them you usually are like, have you finished, guys? No, teacher, no, we're just starting, because they have with the small groups they have like to organize themselves. They are like, okay, who is doing this and who is doing that, and who is, so that takes time. So it's normal that they don't have like this uh, they don't manage time properly.
Mhm.
So that's always a problem. um and I think when to use it, I think that all of them are, but but I would say like to build skills on problem solving, because I think this one encourages them for this one, for problem solving.
Okay, great, great. What about you, Josh?
I think that it's great when you want to like precisely tackle a complex problem, or um, maybe like a wide topic, like a long topic, or yeah, a topic that would take some time for you to explain to the class and give them assessment. I mean, give assessment to each one of them. So it's really useful for when you want to tackle that on one shot, maybe. And I think it represents and reinforces what we have been checking for pairs and trios. I mean, by having a more complex group, you will benefit from the peer correction, the teaching from peer to peer, their different abilities and all that. So, I mean, I think it's a great way of working, but it is really necessary to have a look on it for it to be implemented properly and to avoid like the last of the cons that we have,
Mhm.
learning chunks and doing job individually and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think that overall is pretty good.
Okay, great. Listen, guys. Um, you mentioned this one, tackle more complex problems. Okay. Well, so when we have an activity which is going to take a lot of time to be answered, to be solved, small groups is the best option, so that we can divide the task into certain parts, and each of the members of the group could be on charge of this little part. Okay. Now, the point is this: sometimes we consider that we are going to have small groups just when we are having activities during the classroom. But listen, small groups also can be used when we have certain needs as teachers. How? For example, I'm going to give you this example. You have maybe been working in, I don't know, especially if you work in private schools, okay, you have this complete week that you could just um, give one class instead of 5 that you pretended to give, okay? Because there was a trip, a school trip, because you have rehearsals, because many students were taken out of your classroom for another activity. I mean, things like those in general, okay? And somehow now you have a delay on your program, in your academic program, and you have to cover the complete book, okay? This is the best time to do a small group, okay? And then you can give, you, the first line, are gonna do the page number 35. You, second line, page 36. You, third line, page 37, and so on, okay? And then at the end, when, let's say you have 4 members of each group, 4 lines, and then at the end, you're gonna say, okay, one member of the line number 1, it's gonna be working with one member of the 2, the 3, and the 4. And you, number 1, are gonna give the answers and teach the first lesson of the page 35. Then the member number 2 is gonna teach the rest, the page 36, and you continue like that. And you're gonna fulfill the program. Obviously, when you do this, you have to be monitoring too much, okay? But it is gonna give you more freedom to do certain other activities and just focus on what you consider they are gonna have problems in the page 35, and not to do the complete page 35 because they are able to do it, okay? You're just gonna be monitoring where they may have problems, right? So obviously we're saying 35, 36, 37, 38, because the week, we have a complete week about going to versus will. And these 4 pages are between going to and will. So we can do it, right? So obviously I'm not telling you that they have to be able to teach something that you didn't teach before. No, I mean, but you can do it if you taught that before and they are able to do it now. You get it? Now, I'm gonna stop sharing this and I want to rescue the last one, specific drills to specific needs or personalities, okay? Specific drills to specific needs and specific personalities, okay? Now, let's go back to the mixed ability classes. And I have this group, a very large group with 35 students, okay? Do you remember my categories of students? The low one, the high one, the regular one, okay? What about all of them have to face a task. They are all gonna do the same activity, okay? But then I can use my categorization of my students into different specific tasks for specific abilities. Okay, listen, again, page 35, okay? It's a reading about Little Red Riding Hood, and at the end of the book, at the end of the page, they are going to read. At the end of the page, they are going to have comprehension questions, okay? Multiple choice comprehension questions, okay? So that is something that maybe regular students are going to do it very well, okay? But the high ones, I mean the highest and the lowest, cannot do it. So I'm going to divide my group into the lowest students, you are going to be a small group. The highest students, you are going to be another group, okay? And maybe the regular ones, you in this line. And bit higher, bit lower. Now I have 5 groups, okay? And this is the point. Little Red Riding Hood, comprehension questions, multiple choice. This is what you're going to do, guys. Regular students, okay? But a bit higher, you're gonna do the same, but you're gonna also create a dialogue. When you finish this, you're gonna create a dialogue between the grandma and Little Red Riding Hood, okay? And then the highest, you're gonna do the same activity, but not the dialogue. I mean, you're gonna do, I don't know, the second part of the reading, okay? What happened next? Now, on the other hand, we have a little bit lower. You only read, but you're not gonna answer, okay? You're just gonna talk about what you understood, okay? And the lowest, okay, guys, all of these guys have not had any contact with English. Okay, I want you to read, but you're gonna circle all the verbs, okay? And then you're gonna transfer them into your notebook. And that's the way we can do small groups with mixed ability classes. You get it? Now you have 2 different ways to work with small groups. And again, specific drills for specific needs, okay? Or even specific personalities. What do you think, George?
Yeah, I think it's I think we checked that part, but it was just like mentioned, like, yeah, you can do this. And we didn't check it like, but yes, I mean, when you have that kind of groups that, to be honest, sometimes they are quite difficult when you have like mixed levels, because that's a problem. You can't do a like activity like for all, like the same way for everyone, because they don't have the level. So yes, I think that that's a good idea, like to form like small groups with different levels and to ask them different tasks and depending on their level. And so that's also a challenge for them, because as far as I know, a problem here is that if you ask all of them high level exercise or something like that, the lowest one, they are gonna get frustrated. And if you ask for a low level activity or exercise, the highest level ones, they are gonna get bored. So that's a problem with those mixed level groups.
Yes, you're right. Okay, perfect. Josh, do you want to add something?
No, I mean, it's pretty much what we've been saying, that we need to, I mean, whether we use one or another, we need to monitor the learning pattern in order to ensure that the students are executing it properly. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Mhm.
just reinforcing that part.
Perfect. Okay, we're gonna stop today, right? So tomorrow we're gonna be checking teams, whole class, and total class. Okay. So, well, that's all for today, guys. See you tomorrow, right?
Teacher, thank you. Take care.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you.
Good evening. Take care.
See ya.
Bye bye.
Bye. See you tomorrow.
Bye.